3 years ago, Derek told me I'd never amount to anything because I was too much of a dreamer. Yesterday, he sent me a LinkedIn message asking if my company was hiring. The irony was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Sometimes life has a twisted sense of humor. You know that feeling when karma comes knocking at your door, but instead of satisfaction, you're left staring at your phone wondering how the hell you got here? Well, that's exactly where I found myself last Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, looking at a message that made me question everything I thought I knew about closure. If you've ever had someone doubt your dreams only to come crawling back later, you'll understand exactly what I went through. Trust me, this story gets wild. Make sure to stay until the end because what I decided to do will shock you. The notification popped up on my phone at 8:47 a.m., right as I was reviewing quarterly reports in my corner office overlooking downtown Seattle. Maya Chen, Chief Marketing Officer at Innovate Digital Solutions. That title still felt surreal sometimes, especially when I remembered where I started just 5 years ago. Derek Martinez had sent me a LinkedIn message. My stomach dropped as I read his name, memories flooding back like a dam had burst. We'd dated for 2 years, and he'd spent most of that time telling me my ideas were unrealistic and that I should be more practical about my career goals. Hey Maya, hope you're doing well. I saw your recent promotion announcement on LinkedIn. Congratulations. I'm actually looking for new opportunities in marketing. Would love to catch up and see if there might be a fit at your company. Let me know if you have time to chat. I stared at the message, my hands trembling slightly. The audacity was breathtaking. This was the same man who'd told me I was wasting my time when I quit my stable but soul-crushing job at a local bank to join a tiny startup. The same man who'd rolled his eyes when I talked about wanting to revolutionize digital marketing strategies. The same man who'd said I was too much of a dreamer during our final fight. My assistant, Jennifer, knocked on my door. Maya, the team meeting starts in 10 minutes. Are you ready for the presentation? I quickly closed my phone and grabbed my laptop. Absolutely. Let's show them what dreamers can accomplish. The conference room was buzzing with energy. My team of 12 brilliant minds was about to present our campaign for a major tech client, one that could secure our agency's position as a leader in the Pacific Northwest market. As I looked around the table at the faces of people who believed in my vision, I felt a surge of pride. Good morning, everyone. Before we dive into the presentation, I want to share something with you all. I paused, thinking about Derek's message. 5 years ago, someone told me I was too much of a dreamer. They said my ideas about innovative marketing strategies would never work in the real world. Today, we're about to present a campaign that could change how tech companies approach customer engagement. The room erupted in supportive murmurs and smiles. Sarah, my creative director, raised her hand. Maya, we all know you've built something incredible here. Your dreams became our reality. The presentation went flawlessly. Our client, an emerging AI company, was so impressed they immediately approved our proposal and increased their budget by 40%. As we celebrated in the conference room afterward, I couldn't help but think about how different my life might have been if I'd listened to Derek's practical advice. After the team dispersed, I sat alone in my office, staring out at the Seattle skyline. The Space Needle stood tall against the cloudy afternoon sky, a symbol of innovation and forward thinking. Just like this city, I'd learned to embrace big ideas and bold moves. My phone buzzed with another message from Derek. I know it's been a while, but I'd really appreciate the chance to talk. I'm in a tough spot right now and could use some guidance from someone who's clearly figured things out. I set my phone down and walked to my window. The irony wasn't lost on me. The man who'd crushed my confidence was now asking for help from the very person he'd tried to diminish. Part of me wanted to ignore him completely, but another part was curious about what had happened to the man who'd once seemed so sure of himself. That evening, I called my best friend Rachel from my apartment in Capitol Hill. She'd been there through the entire Derek saga and had never been shy about sharing her opinion of him. He did what? Rachel's voice was incredulous. The same Derek who told you that joining a startup was career suicide? The very same. I curled up on my couch with a glass of wine, looking out at the city lights. I don't know what to do, Rach. Part of me wants to tell him exactly what I think of his nerve. And the other part? I sighed. The other part is curious about what happened to him, and maybe, just maybe, wants to show him exactly what this dreamer accomplished. Rachel was quiet for a moment. Maya, you don't owe him anything. But if you decide to respond, do it for you, not for him. After we hung up, I sat in my living room, surrounded by the awards and recognition I'd received over the past 3 years. Employee of the Year, Marketing Campaign of the Year, Young Professional Excellence Award. Each one represented a dream that Derek had told me was impossible. I picked up my phone and started typing a response, then deleted it, started again, deleted again. Finally, I set the phone aside and went to bed, knowing that whatever I decided would set the tone for a confrontation I'd been unconsciously preparing for since the day we broke up. The next morning, I woke up with a decision crystallizing in my mind. I would meet with Derek, but on my terms. I wanted to understand what had happened to the man who'd once been so confident in his criticism of my dreams. More importantly, I wanted to face the ghosts of my past head-on. I typed out a measured response. Derek, I can meet for coffee this Saturday at 2 p.m. Pike Place Market, the coffee shop on the corner of First and Pike. We can talk then. His response came within minutes. Thank you so much, Maya. I really appreciate this. See you Saturday. The rest of the week flew by in a blur of client meetings and strategy sessions. Our AI campaign was already showing promising results, and I found myself busier than ever. But Derek's message lingered in the back of my mind like an unfinished song. Saturday arrived with typical Seattle weather, a light drizzle that made the city look like a watercolor painting. I arrived at the coffee shop early, choosing a table near the window where I could watch the bustling market activity. The familiar sounds of vendors calling out their wares and tourists chatting excitedly provided a comforting backdrop. Derek walked in exactly at 2 p.m., and I barely recognized him. The confident, slightly arrogant man I'd dated had been replaced by someone who looked tired and uncertain. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his clothes, while clean, lacked the meticulous attention to detail I remembered. Maya. He approached my table hesitantly. Thank you for agreeing to meet. You look incredible. I gestured to the chair across from me. Please, sit. You said you wanted to talk. He settled into his chair, ordering a black coffee when the barista came over. I noticed his hands were shaking slightly as he lifted the cup to his lips. I guess I should start with an apology, he began, not meeting my eyes. The way things ended between us, the things I said, I was wrong. I kept my expression neutral. Which things specifically? He winced. All of it. Calling you a dreamer like it was a bad thing. Telling you that startup job was a mistake. Saying you weren't being realistic about your goals. He finally looked up at me. I saw your LinkedIn profile, Maya. Chief Marketing Officer at 28. That's incredible. 29, actually. I got promoted 6 months ago. I took a sip of my latte, letting the silence stretch between us. So what happened, Derek? Last I heard, you were climbing the corporate ladder at that insurance company. His face crumpled slightly. I got laid off 8 months ago. Budget cuts. And finding another job has been challenging. He ran his hand through his hair. The industry's changing so fast and I feel like I'm stuck in the past. All those practical approaches I was so proud of, they're obsolete now. I felt a flicker of something. Not quite sympathy, but recognition of human struggle. I'm sorry to hear that. Job searching is never easy. That's actually why I reached out. He leaned forward slightly. I know this is awkward, but I was hoping maybe there might be an opportunity at your company. I've been following your work, and what you've built is exactly the kind of innovative thinking the market needs. The irony hit me like a physical force. Let me get this straight. You want to work for the company built by the dreamer you once told to be more practical? He had the grace to look ashamed. I know how it sounds. I know I don't deserve your help after how I treated you. But Maya, I've learned so much about myself over the past year. Losing my job, struggling to find relevance in my field, it's humbled me in ways I never expected. I studied his face, looking for signs of the manipulation I'd become so familiar with during our relationship. Instead, I saw genuine remorse and something else. Desperation. Tell me about these lessons you've learned, I said. For the next hour, Derek opened up in a way he never had during our relationship. He talked about how losing his job had forced him to confront his own insecurities and fears. How he'd realized that his criticism of my dreams had been projection. He'd been afraid of taking risks himself, so he'd tried to discourage me from taking them. "I spent so much time playing it safe," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "While you were out there changing the world, I was stuck in the same boring routine, telling myself I was being smart and practical. But the truth is I was scared. Scared of failing, scared of being seen as foolish, scared of dreaming too big. I felt my anger beginning to soften, replaced by something more complex. Derek, I appreciate your honesty, but you need to understand something. When you told me I was too much of a dreamer, you nearly broke something inside me. I almost gave up on everything I'm passionate about because someone I trusted told me it wasn't worth pursuing." Tears welled up in his eyes. "I know, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. You were brave enough to chase your dreams, and instead of supporting you, I tried to tear you down. I can't undo that, but I can acknowledge it and try to be better." The conversation continued for another 30 minutes, touching on our relationship, our different paths, and the lessons we'd both learned. By the end, I felt something I hadn't expected. Closure. Not the angry, vindictive closure I'd sometimes fantasized about, but a peaceful understanding of how we'd both grown since our split. "I can't promise anything," I said as we prepared to leave. "But send me your resume. I'll see if there are any positions that might be a fit." His relief was palpable. "Thank you, Maya. This means more than you know." As I walked home through the drizzling Seattle afternoon, I felt lighter somehow. The ghost of Derek's criticism had haunted me for years, pushing me to prove him wrong but also filling me with doubt during my most challenging moments. Now, seeing him humbled and genuinely remorseful, I realized I no longer needed his validation or approval. I'd found both within myself. The following Monday, Derek's resume arrived in my inbox. I printed it out and studied it carefully, trying to separate my personal history from my professional judgment. His experience was solid but unremarkable, exactly what I'd expected from someone who'd chosen the safe path for so long. I called my HR director, Patricia, into my office. She was a sharp woman in her 50s who'd helped me build our company culture from the ground up. "I need your opinion on something," I said, handing her the resume. "We have an opening in the account management department. This candidate has the basic qualifications, but there's some personal history I need to consider." Patricia reviewed the resume quickly. "Derek Martinez. His experience looks decent, though not exceptional. What's the personal history?" I took a deep breath. "He's my ex-boyfriend. We dated for 2 years and it ended badly. He reached out asking for help finding a job." Patricia raised an eyebrow. "That's definitely complicated. What's your gut telling you?" "That's the problem. My gut is telling me multiple things at once." I stood up and paced to the window. Part of me wants to help him because he seems genuinely remorseful and everyone deserves a second chance. Part of me is worried about the potential complications of working with an ex. And part of me— I paused, acknowledging the darker emotion. Part of me likes the idea of him working for me. The power dynamic appeals to my ego. Patricia nodded thoughtfully. "That last part is the most honest thing you've said. Maya, you've built something incredible here, and you did it by making smart decisions, not emotional ones. If you hire him, it needs to be because he's the best candidate for the job, not because of your history. You're right. Set up interviews with the other candidates we've been considering. I want to make sure we're making the best choice for the company." Over the next week, I interviewed 5 candidates for the account management position. Derek was objectively the third best candidate, qualified but not exceptional. The top candidate was a young woman named Lisa Chen who'd recently moved to Seattle from San Francisco, bringing impressive experience from a major tech company. I found myself in an ethical dilemma. Lisa was clearly the better choice professionally, but something about Derek's situation tugged at me. He was genuinely struggling, and I had the power to help him. Was that enough reason to give him the job? I decided to seek advice from my mentor, Dr. Elizabeth Harper, who'd guided me through some of my most difficult professional decisions. We met for dinner at a quiet restaurant in Belltown. "The fact that you're wrestling with this decision shows your character," Dr. Harper said after I explained the situation. But let me ask you something. If Derek were a stranger with his exact same qualifications, would you hire him? I didn't hesitate. No. Lisa is clearly the better candidate. Then you have your answer. Maya, successful businesses are built on merit, not sentiment. If you start making hiring decisions based on personal relationships, you'll undermine everything you've worked to build. Her words hit home. I'd fought so hard to be taken seriously as a young female executive, and I couldn't afford to make decisions that appeared emotional or unprofessional. That night, I called Derek. He answered on the first ring. Maya, I've been hoping to hear from you. How did the interview process go? Derek, I need to be direct with you. We've decided to go with another candidate. Lisa Chen will be joining our team next month. The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably long. I see. Can I ask why? She has more relevant experience and stronger references. It was a business decision. Right, of course. His voice was flat, defeated. I understand. Thank you for considering me. Derek, wait. I'm not done. I took a deep breath. I can't offer you a job, but I can offer you something else. I'd like to introduce you to some contacts in the industry. People who might have openings that are a better fit for your background. You'd do that? Even after everything? Yes. You made mistakes, but you've acknowledged them and you're trying to grow. That counts for something. We talked for another few minutes, and I could hear the hope creeping back into his voice. After we hung up, I felt a sense of peace. I'd made the right professional decision while still extending compassion to someone who'd genuinely changed. The next day, I reached out to 3 of my industry contacts, all of whom had mentioned they were hiring. I sent Derek's resume along with a brief note explaining his situation, without the personal details, and vouching for his potential. Within a week, he had 2 interviews lined up. Lisa Chen started the following Monday, and within her first week, she'd already identified 3 ways to improve our client retention strategy. Watching her work, I knew I'd made the right choice. 3 months later, I received a text from Derek. Got the job at Pinnacle Marketing. Start Monday. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. I smiled, genuinely happy for him. His journey wasn't over, but he was on a better path. More importantly, I'd learned something valuable about myself. I could be both strong and compassionate, both professional and human. That evening, I was working late in my office when Jennifer knocked on my door. Maya, there's someone here to see you. She says it's important. A young woman entered my office, probably in her early 20s, with the same nervous energy I'd once carried. She introduced herself as Amanda, a recent college graduate who'd been following my career and wanted advice about starting her own marketing agency. Everyone tells me I'm too young, too inexperienced, too much of a dreamer, she said, her voice shaking slightly. But I have ideas that I know could work. I just need someone to believe in me. I gestured for her to sit down, seeing myself in her eager face. Tell me about these ideas. For the next hour, Amanda shared her vision for a marketing agency that specialized in sustainable and ethical brands. Her passion was infectious, her ideas innovative, and her determination reminded me of myself 5 years ago. Amanda, let me tell you something, I said when she finished. Someone once told me I was too much of a dreamer. They said my ideas would never work in the real world. 3 years later, that same person asked me for a job. Her eyes widened. Really? What did you do? I made a decision based on merit, not emotion. But more importantly, I learned that being called a dreamer isn't an insult. It's a compliment. Dreams are what drive innovation, progress, and change. I opened my laptop and pulled up a document I'd been working on. We're launching a mentorship program for young entrepreneurs. Interested? Amanda's face lit up like Christmas morning. Yes, absolutely yes. As she left my office that night, clutching the mentorship program information, I felt a profound sense of completion. The girl who'd once been told she was too much of a dreamer was now in a position to nurture other dreamers. A week later, I received an email from Derek. Maya, I know this might sound strange, but I wanted to thank you again. Not just for the job connections, but for showing me what it means to dream big and work hard. You've inspired me to think differently about my own goals. I replied simply, "Everyone deserves the chance to dream, Derek. Even you." That Saturday, I stood in my office looking out at the Seattle skyline, thinking about the journey that had brought me here. The city sprawled below me, full of dreamers and innovators, people who refused to accept limitations placed on them by others. My phone buzzed with a notification. Amanda had posted on LinkedIn about being accepted into our mentorship program, thanking me for believing in dreamers. The post had dozens of comments from other young professionals sharing their own stories of being discouraged from pursuing their dreams. I realized then that my encounter with Derek had given me something unexpected, not just closure, but purpose. I'd transformed from someone fighting to prove her worth to someone empowering others to see their own worth. The irony of Derek's message asking for a job had evolved into something beautiful. It had reminded me that everyone deserves compassion, growth, and second chances. More importantly, it had shown me that the greatest revenge against those who doubt your dreams isn't proving them wrong, it's proving them irrelevant. As I prepared to leave the office that evening, I thought about all the dreamers out there, the ones being told they're too ambitious, too unrealistic, too much. I made a silent promise to each of them: dream bigger, work harder, and never let anyone convince you that your vision is impossible. After all, the world needs dreamers. We're the ones who change everything. The next morning, I woke up early and opened my laptop. I began typing a new blog post. To every dreamer who's been told they're too much, this one's for you. Some stories end with revenge. Others end with forgiveness. But the best stories? They end with transformation, not just of ourselves, but of the world around us. And that transformation starts with a single dream, held tight by someone brave enough to believe it's possible.